government officials insist that this is an isolated incident.
Warning. The following program contains explicit language and mature content. It is not meant for the easily offended. So if you are an emotional pussy, please refrain from listening. Thank you and enjoy.
Welcome back. Another edition of the Buzz Podcast. Going a little bit throwback today. As you see, my the homie on my left here, or yours right, he is from the original show from the Words on Fire podcast. Goes by the name of Vince. Still repping the old school shit.
Still got the shirt. It still fits.
It still fits. So I guess hold on before we lose
it's
him.
a little more snug.
It's a little snug. Yeah. Hold on. We have a special guest coming on. He, some of y'all might know him from the Misfits. Some of y'all might know him from his solo projects. Some of y'all might know him from social media, all these cancellations and all this other bullshit going on. He goes by the name of, I want to say it's Michael, but it's spelled Michale Graves. Let me bring him on real quick. Or not. All right. There we go. Mr. Graves, can you hear us?
Gotcha. Loud and clear.
Nice. All right. So we're coming to you from the grave. So did I say that the first name, is it Michael? Is it Michale?
It's Michael.
All right. Yeah. Cause it's a little bit different spelling, right? Or is it just,
it is.
Like I said, I'm ignorant. I'm Mexican. So
yes. When I was like 15 years old, I had a real good friend of mine. His name was Jimmy. Mm-hmm. And, we called him Jim, and he was a couple years older than me. And he was just like really, really cool guy. Like, he was like real artsy, had the most beautiful voice you've ever heard, real musical, just like awesome, this awesome dude. And, again, like real creative, real artsy. And he would spell his name Jhim. Like he just like, I'm going to change the spelling of my name just to show how different I am and how rebellious. And I'm like, me fucking too. Now I'm going to spell my name Michael. And that's why it's spelled that way.
And that's when punk started,
it's Michael. Right? Yeah. For me. Yeah. I was like, yeah, changing the spelling of my name.
Hell yeah. I go against everything that's every law of nature. Well, Mike,
it was an act of rebellion.
Yes, sir. It's still, the rebellion is still in us, right?
That's for sure.
All right, Mike. So for those of us that are like my co-host here, Vince, who's a huge Misfits fan, like how did you get involved with the Misfits? Because I know you look a little bit younger than when they originally started, right? Because they're a band from the 70s that they split up, came back, and all that good shit. How did you get involved with it?
I was at the right place at the right time. My life lined up in such a way that it put me in a studio in Lodi, New Jersey. And I was recording with a band that I was singing for. And the owner of the studio at the time was working with Jerry and Doyle and Kenny, the guys, the Misfits. And they were working on a tape that they had from Max's Kansas City. So they were in the studio, and the guy's name was Bobby. So I come into the studio one day, and Bobby says, man, you got a really great voice, and there's this band called the Misfits, and they're looking for a singer. Why don't you reach out to them, get yourself an audition? I was like, all right. So I took Jerry's phone number. I called him up, and he said, learn as many songs as you possibly can. Give me a call back when you think that you're ready. Mm-hmm. And so I immediately went out and I bought a CD of the Misfits stuff, and I learned all the songs, and I scheduled an audition. Now at the time I was running in punk rock circles. Okay. Right, so this was like 1990. I guess it was like 1994. And so I had friends telling me like, this is important, man. Like this is not just going to, audition for the band down the block type of thing.
So you didn't really know who the Misfits were?
I knew who the Misfits were, but I wasn't a punk rocker, right? I wasn't a skinhead. So I wasn't, a metalhead. I wasn't a burnout. I kind of floated around. I just loved music. So I knew the Misfits because I was a skate rat too. So, if you played Skulls or Martian or Die Die My Darling, I knew it because I remember hearing it on the playgrounds when we would be skating. It would be coming out of the boom boxes, and people's mixtapes. Yeah. So so that's how I knew. I didn't understand the education that I got before I auditioned for them and then throughout until I really got the part was punk rock history. And I know we're going to talk, later about, ideology and politics, but that's a huge part of this because there was a political part of this, like a culture part to it that I didn't totally understand, that I began to realize, that I began to be educated about. And the first thing I got was Henry Rollins' Get in the Van. Somebody gave it to me on audio tape. It was fucking tape back then, right? You couldn't download it. There was no such thing. So I go and I audition for the Misfits, and I do, I don't know, probably like 30 something songs. And it was awesome. Doyle didn't show up. So it was just me, Jerry, and Chud. And we blew through these songs. It was so great. And then, just nothing happened. And then, so we went through all, months and months. These guys couldn't figure out who they wanted to get in the band. It was Glenn's going to come back. Dave Vanian from The Damned was going to sing for them. They took out an ad in the newspaper. So like everybody in America that has ever wanted to sing with the Misfits showed up. And because word got out that they started recording them, Chud started recording everybody. Everyone was like, oh, no, we can just go and get, a recording with the Misfits. So it was crazy, man. There was a fun, like Doyle, I sat with Doyle and we screened, people that wanted to sing for the band so that it was insane. All right. So 1994 October rolls around and the guys from Typo Negative reach out to the Misfits and say, we're playing the Roseland Ballroom on Halloween. Why don't you guys come out? Here's an invitation for you guys to come out during the encore and jam a couple of songs that'll reintroduce the band to the world. It would be a huge thing. It would be great, And so the Misfits said, yeah, that's a great idea. We'll take you up on that offer, but we don't have a singer. So they came up with, all right, let's ask Pete Steele from Typo Negative.
Okay.
Now, at this point in my life, I'm a huge Typo Negative fan, like a huge Typo Negative fan. So they asked Pete. Pete says yes. Pete says, I don't know any of the songs. They call me and they ask me if I would teach Pete Steele these Misfit songs. Yeah. So we go into Brooklyn and we start playing, and I'm teaching Pete Steele these Misfit songs, and he stops everybody halfway through, and he looks at me and he says, this is your singer. Like, this is the guy that she should be singing. He sings these songs great. I'm not, so it was like the light bulb went off in everybody's head, and they're like, hey man, I mean, do you want to sing for, on Halloween? Is that something you'd be interested in? And I'm like, yeah, let me think about it. Fuck yeah, of course. Duh. What do you think I'm doing here? So Pete Steele from Typo Negative got me into the Misfits when he decided that I was a better singer than he was.
How did that feel? With you being a big old Typo Negative fan,
dude,
the lead singer's like, you're better than me. How does that feel?
Man, that felt good. Damn. That felt like, I was seen and I was definitely heard. And that's huge.
So when you joined the Misfits, like what was was it during the height of the punk scene, or was it kind of like on the downward trajectory of it, or?
It was a time when, you know, Green Day had already released Dookie, and they were, you know, they were huge, right? And we're coming off of Nirvana, and there was that resurgence of punk rock that really came roaring back. And so, but there was also, you know, all these really great, like hard and heavy bands, like, you know, hardcore bands and bands like Corrosion of Conformity. You had bands like Marilyn Manson and Megadeth playing, and Gwar, all of which, you know, we played with, just like really great 90s bands that were, you know, Pantera, right? And Metallica were just, it was a great time to be in heavy music. White Zombie was huge, you know, Tool and Nine Inch Nails. And so for us to come back in that time to have the punk rock pedigree, but we were able to really tap into the thrash part of it that the Misfits were, you know, you think about Earth AD. So when I was thinking, as I was writing for American Psycho, you think about, all right, Earth AD was the last thing. That trajectory that Glenn had put the band on was really, you know, something that you start to hear like in Metallica and these thrash, you know, bands. So what would it sound like now was my thinking, you know, Iron Maiden and, you know, bands like that, Guns N' Roses. And so, yeah, to have that punk rock pedigree and to have the popularity of heavy rock during that time, it was a really great moment for the Misfits to come back.
So when you came back and you were, like you said, you played with a lot of these guys, and you know it started getting a little bit more heavier. Were the people that you met, like the band people or the other groups, did any of these guys disappoint you? Like, 'cause I know usually they always say never meet your heroes, right? Because they're always going to fall short because they're, you know, we always have them on a certain, I guess, pedestal, you could say. Like, were any of these guys anything different than what you would expect, or, you know, were they just playing the role, or?
I'm lucky. Everybody that I ever toured with, from Life of Agony, Anthrax, Gwar, you know, H2O, you know, Megadeth, like Dave Aney and Dave Mustaine and I, you know, I seen Dave treat other people like not like he, you know, he was getting on with me. And so I really had it good, man. Everybody always treated me really good. I can't put my finger on one time I was like, wow, you know, I could point the finger at me a whole bunch of times where I was a total asshole.
Was that part of the stigma, or was that just who you were? Because I mean, at the age that you were at, because you're still fairly young, right?
You know, yeah, I was young, so there were times that for me, admittedly, that I thought that being that asshole was what you were, you know, what was expected of me at the time.
Yeah.
Like, for example, I was a total asshole to Bob Dylan's manager and his assistant when Bob Dylan and the Misfits were playing the same built in the same building, and Bob was going over. It was a time issue, and I thought, like, as like a punk rocker, like Bob Dylan's like a hippie, so like I was just like, fuck you get the fuck, and you know. And then after I grew up a bit, I'm like, oh my god, like if I was just cool, you know, I'd be like, hey man, you want to meet Bob Dylan, or you know, and
right.
But
but when you're young, I mean, that's the last
like
thing.
How old were
I was
you
an idiot.
during that time?
22.
22, and how old was Jerry and Dr. Chud and Doyle?
Chud and Doyle are 10 years older than me. So at the time they were 31, 32. And so Jerry was up there. You know, 36, 37, something like that.
Is that a little old for a punk? Like, is there an age limit for punk?
No, because I think that it's a mindset, it's two different things, right? I mean, it's certainly well, maybe three, but it's certainly it's a mindset, right? It's a genre conversation, and certainly it's you can say what the culture politic part, what is or what it isn't.
That's why I think is unique about punk is that like punk pretty much correlates to politics. That's where punk came from, is because of politics. It's like going against the grain, against like social structures and everything. You want to go against it, and that's the whole point of like punk. Okay, to me, like other types of music, it's not really so much political. This is political in the sense that you can't tell me what to do.
Yeah.
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 Yes,
it's the youth in us.
I don't
right?
disagree.
Yeah.
It's the youth in us. Oh, before we start getting a little bit deeper, when you're on tour with War, what was that like? Because how many people were in that band? There's usually like 50 motherfuckers up there on the stage.
Large team.
How crazy
They
was
used to call them
Were they as crazy as they look?
The pink people.
The pink people?
I think that certainly there's some crazy there. As much crazy as I have. When you're dealing with Guar, and I loved every minute of being on the road with those guys.
Yeah.
Because they are each of them individually and then obviously collectively are such creatives, and they're smart people. They're intellectuals. They've studied art history. They've gone to college. Some of them have degrees in art. And so there's this intellectual side to it, this smart side to it, as well as the creative part, that when I just loved being around them, because they were always buzzing. They were always doing something. And so it was just excellent. I used to call them the pink people, because every night they were shooting blood everywhere. And so that they were just constantly just dyed pink. They were so pink.
That's hilarious.
I
Dave
remember-
Brocky was one of my favorite people in the world. One of my favorite people in the world. And he took care of me like he was my big brother.
That's awesome.
And when Cujo mentioned that he wasn't there bringing you on, like it struck a nerve with me, because I haven't been on the podcast for a long time now, and I wanted to actually meet you and talk to you, because I got into Misfits when you were the lead singer at the time. Like I got into American Psycho and Famous Monsters. Those two albums, those were to me, it feels like the best albums Misfits had produced. To me, it just felt like every song was just a hitter. Like every song, and then your voice was just like Danzig is Danzig, but with your voice, it just seemed like the songs that you guys sang went perfect with your voice, and I would catch myself try to like imitate your voice at some time, like singing in the car, or singing in the shower, with the songs. I remember
nowhere close.
I was in middle school when I went to my first Misfits concert here in El Paso, Texas, and I went with my two cousins and their friend. And I remember, I'm not sure if it was you or if it was Doyle. My cousin, he grabbed one of your chains and tried to pull you down. I'm not sure if it was you or Doyle that just punched him in the face, and they just fell back. And then my cousin was so excited. He was like, I got punched in the face. I got punched in the face. Because
times have changed.
Even for Halloween, I dressed up as Michale Graves from the Misfits. I shaved my head and everything. I dyed my hair.
Oh, shit.
So the Misfits were the thing for me during middle school. That was I remember I was in class and the teacher would tell us to write poems. And I was like, oh, fuck that. I went to lyrics for.
I'm just gonna copyright all my.
I just went to lyrics for the Misfits, and I just started writing nice poems.
Nice.
And all the teachers were like, oh, this is unique, and no one had any idea who the Misfits were. Yeah, I was in middle school, and no one had any idea who the Misfits were back then.
You see, but
during that time,
it's crazy. When you see the evolution, between he said how we grow up, right? Our views change on things, right? When the Misfits started in the 70s to when you came in, how different was that evolution from you being the new guy and putting in your 2 cents? How different was the evolution of the music?
Especially you being so young and them being in their 30s already.
Yeah, a little bit older.
That was I don't think that it wasn't. I guess it was strange. It again, it was strange because I was so young. I mean, I met them when I was 20. You know, I auditioned for them when I was 20, and then when I was in the band, I turned 21 on like the first tour we went on. So they were married. Jerry had kids. Chud. Yeah, they were older, so that it was took some getting used to.
Yeah.
Because obviously I was used to hanging out with people, my age.
Yeah.
But with as far as the times being different, certainly they were. But what I did was, I have a PhD in the Misfits music. Like I know every nuance, like of all the old stuff, and obviously the stuff with me, but like all the old stuff, I can hear where Glenn breathes. I have a PhD in it, and so when I was absorbing it and I was getting into all right, where does this come from, right? Like where is Glenn? Like how is Glenn filtering all of this? Like why is he doing this? Where is this coming from? And the answer that I got was obviously, for me, it wasn't any different than what any other artist was doing. They were taking from the world. It was, Glenn was making social commentary. He was making historical references. So he was taking historical takes on things. He was addressing all the things that artists address. But what was different about it was like the B-film horror directors and writers of the past, they were taking these things and they were telling the stories of human fears and anxieties, again, and social context and social commentary. And they were using ghosts and monsters and these imagery and these, these things that were painting a different picture, but, all through the lens of horror. And I found that to be innovative and refreshing and exciting because I never thought of that. Like just taking a regular song, but purposely painting it to where it's a horror movie. It's something scary, and that's the magic of the Misfits. And that's what the Misfits did was take all of these things and suck it into this world, like the dark part of the forest. Even when we were singing about beautiful things, it was in the dark part of the forest. And so then I understood it. And so everything that I wrote, I put it through that filter of, okay, now I have to make it scare, I have to make it like the Misfits.
Right.
I have to make it fit in that bowl.
Yeah. So was that very, when you recorded the American Psycho and your famous monsters, like was the pressure up, did you have a lot of pressure, having to live up to the dancing era of the Misfits, or did you just see it as as a chance for you put your staple on it?
So at the time, I knew Glenn Danzig more than I knew the Misfits because, right? So I'm Generation X. So when you say Danzig, sure, I remember the Misfits as I was skating in that parking lot, but I much more remember Glenn on MTV and with Mother and all. Like Glenn was a god. He was a godfather of music, certainly, because by now I know that the stuff that Glenn wrote, I mean, think about Cliff Burton and Metallica and Slayer and Rob Zombie and all of these other bands that look to the Misfits and go, this inspiration. And plus what just a creative force he is. All of a sudden, of course, I said, oh my God, I'm going to be compared to that quarterback. You know what I mean? Yeah. So now I have to figure out, I knew I couldn't, I And I was trying, you know, it wasn't like I could do an impression of Glenn. Everybody was doing impressions of Glenn. Everybody.
Right.
And in a strange way, I was kind of trying to do an impression of Glenn, but I did it so bad, you know, it just sounds like me.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I knew the pressure was on, but at one point before it really started to take off and, you know, I really started to get into it, I took a deep breath. And really, I took a deep breath and I just said, I'm never going to think about that again. I'm just going to stay in my lane. I'm going to do my thing because, you know, I know how to throw the ball. You know, I know what I have to do. I know where I have to look. I use a lot of sports references, but it's true. Yeah. I know like where to look on the field. I have those senses. If I just play my game and do my thing and trust that, you know, I can do it, I'm going to be okay. If not, you know, I'll fail knowing that I did it my way, you know, and I wasn't. Yeah, yeah, totally.
Your story sounds a lot like the movie. Was it Rockstar? The Mark Wahlberg. Is that? Was that based?
It's a lot like that, man. It's a lot like that. It's a lot like that.
Is there a lot of people that have that same story? Do you see, you know, from seeing being in the business like that, or is it just very few that are blessed like that?
No, I think that there are very few that are blessed. And I think I'm a special case too because of, again, the lore of the Misfits and just the way our story went down and where I've ended up in the culture. Mm-hmm. You know, I definitely think that I'm a different case, you know, because you can't even compare me to, I mean, you can sort of compare me to, you know, like David Lee Roth, Sammy Hagar, but Sammy Hagar was already a rock star when he, you know what I mean? Like if he failed at Van Halen or whatever, he wasn't like he didn't have to go work at ShopRite and, you know, bag groceries or anything.
So looking back to, you know, your time with the Misfits, dude, what was your favorite song that you recorded with them and why?
I always talk about Fiend Without a Face. I loved recording that song because in its conception, when it was brought out, when I showed it to everybody, it's such a different song than we had ever created before. It was a very, very different song than we had ever attempted before. And I remember showing it to everybody and trying to work out parts, and it was, everybody was very uncomfortable with it. Not because they didn't like it, but it was just, all right, we have this thing, you know, like you do with any song, or we have this thing. How in the world are we going to, you know, beat something out of it and make it our own? Yeah. Even more so than Crying on Saturday Night which was a bit of a challenge as well. Mm-hmm. But Fiend Without a Face, and it's my favorite because as we were working in the studio, you know, and I had obviously taken the lead in helping them feel it out and where it was and help with directing it. It was just so awesome to, you know, hear like Jerry, like all, you know, come up with these parts again, and not like he hadn't come up with awesome parts a million times before, right, but just coming, you know, really just taking on something again that was so out in left field from what we were used to and the cauldron of things that we would pull from, and then all of a sudden go, oh, we found it. All right, check this out. And then see how it started to roll downhill from there. And then at the end, you had this incredible, you know, mid-tempo, beautiful, eerie, spooky song that became Fiend Without a Face.
Damn. So what happened with the band? Because I mean, you left in 2000? Is that right? Give or take.
Yeah. It was. I was officially gone in 2001, but I think it was in 2000 that I walked away from the band.
And what was it just like creative differences? Was it just, you know, beefing between musicians as far as to, you know, what it was, what it should be, what it is, or was it just time for something new?
You know, it was simply because I was lost and I had nobody to turn to at that point in time to make sense of things. So make no mistake, it was me that, I quit the band. I wasn't fired. Nobody told me I had to leave. It wasn't like that.
Yeah.
I was so jacked in my head and just so passive aggressive and angry and lost and hurt. At times I was suicidal. I was just in this hole, man. And I was so scared and freaked out. I didn't know what the hell was going on, both in my, in my personal life, but as well as in my professional life. And I didn't know how to separate the two. I had no business sense. I had no idea at all. Duh. And if I paid half, attention to it, I definitely would have a lot more, things and, material things in my life.
Right.
But that was, that's the reason I left, because I didn't feel normal anymore, and I felt like nobody cared about me. Okay. And so I was really hurting, and I was really, really scared that I was going to start to do some really stupid things that were going to hurt me. And it was like the old story about the crossroads, and I was standing at those crossroads, and there was a demon there, or there was an entity there. And it was like, all right, you got to make a decision. If you go down this road, and I could look down the road and I could see a Michael. I saw me down that road, and then I would look down this road, and there was a very, very different Michael that I would see at the end of that road. And so I had to make a decision. And I was scared as hell. And so I went home.
Yeah. So when something like that happens, like, were you able to talk to your band members, be like, yo, you know what? I'm in a bad spot. Or was it just, because I mean, with the industry being what it is, it's, we got to keep snowballing, it's every man for themselves.
I talked to Doyle about it, and I talked to Chud about it, but Chud was a complete moron. Still is. But Doyle understood, but he didn't know what to do. Doyle didn't know what to do. Like, I didn't know what to do. And I didn't know how to talk to Jerry. I was very, I was intimidated by him. And I didn't know how to talk to him. With Jerry, it was always just like, okay, great. Whoa. It was like that, but
Would you say that you had a personal life, or the Misfits were your personal life?
I think the Misfits were my personal life. Well, that's not exactly true. At that time I was younger, so when I went home in between gaps of time on on the road, oh my God, my life was, I would write. I would just constantly write. I surfed all the time. Even when there wasn't waves, I would just paddle out, and just to stay in shape, because as well, I was staying in shape for the road. And that's a great thing to do, is like paddle. And plus I loved surfing, and I loved being in the water. I played hockey. I was playing, if I wasn't playing ice hockey, somewhere or with some people, I was playing roller hockey with people, or I was running, or I was at the gym, or I was hanging out with my dogs. And, so I certainly had a personal life, but, there was nobody talking to me about like real life things, like, hey man, you're signed to one of the biggest record labels on the planet. You should get your house in order. I didn't know what taxes were. Like, oh, I have to pay what, I had no idea that part of things. Right. I was an artist. I was just like, my attitude was like, cool, I get to be in a band with my friends. We're making this money. And when I come home, I surf and I smoke weed and I hang out and I run around with my dogs, and, not just for fun, but, maybe I'll wait tables, pick up a shift at the restaurant for, 1 or 2 nights. And I had this, I would skateboard.
Damn, you're free
I was free, but
to a point.
you know, I wasn't thinking, all right, what's going to happen in 5 or 10 years from now? I was just like, whatever, you know, I'll figure it out.
Yeah, well,
It's
we,
cool.
we never think we're undefeated, right? We can't be beaten. We're at the top. I mean, you coming up at 20, you were on top of the world, right? Because, like you said, you're at a big label. Not many people have that luxury. So, you know, like I said, do you think it's more of a problem is it more of a problem like an industry issue where, you know, they just want to ride you till your wheels fall off, and once they're done, well, you know, it is what it is.
Sure, of course, I get that.
Them.
Yeah, I totally get that. But to be honest with you, I wish there was a company like that behind me that was just like that wants to work me into the ground.
Yeah.
Certainly, you know, I feel like I know, you know, I could say no, but you know, certainly there's a you know, there's a relentless push, you know, to make money and go. Of course.
Right.
Again, let's go like think about NFL, think about the NBA or something like that.
Yeah.
There is a relentless, you know, push to it. There, you know, so it's not like people are sitting there. They're the ones that are, well, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, because I know usually within, I mean, like if we're going to go with the sports analogy, like the average career for an NFL player is what, 3 years? After that, you're pretty much done unless you're one of the, the amazing, you know, poster childs that, you know, everybody knows about or whatnot.
Certainly. There's a huge, you know, obviously in sports there's much more of a physical toll that's taken on your body because of the contact. But, you know, certainly, you know, being on stage and doing the things and being a dynamic performer, and which we were, you know, we were as close to athletes as you can get.
Right.
And I took care of myself. We took care of ourselves on the road, you know, to suit that. You know, I always say, you know, I'm a product of Doyle. Like if I joke with Doyle, I say, you know, I tell people, man, like if you're looking to find out like where I've come, like who built me, it was Doyle Wolfgang von Frankenstein. Like he built me. He taught me how to eat. He taught me how to lift. He taught me, you know, what, you know, and I was with him every night, you know, again, like a quarterback and a receiver, just lifting each other's games. And, and so the longevity is something that you have to think about. And again, back when I was very, very young, I didn't have the emotional maturity or any sort of infrastructure, whether it was, you know, a father telling me this or, you know, a mother telling me. There was no one around me saying, you know, hey, man, you have to get your house in order. You're making money. There's big companies behind you. I know you're sad. I know you're frustrated or whatever the fuck the case is in your head. But at some point, you know, there's a lot of things that, you know, I wasn't making in a lot of sense objective or reasonable decisions about things. I was adding my emotions into it, and you know, it would fuck a lot of things up, you know, and that's emotional immaturity. And that was for, you know, a lot of reasons.
Like, would you say like if you were to join the Misfits, like if you were like in your late 20s or early 30s, it would have turned out a lot better than what it did?
You know, that's a great question. Yes, I think that if I got my ass kicked, you know, a couple of more years, you know, and I had some time to figure out some stuff in my head and get over some things and sort of right my ship and get into a better headspace. Yeah, I think that all of us might have come out better in the end.
Yeah, because I would think that it's kind of hard for you to relate to them given the fact that they're older, they have families and everything, and then you're basically on your own. And
sure.
The Misfits are your family, but they have their own thing going on. And it's like, who do I turn to?
There was a lot of challenges, yes. And unfortunately, in my experience, anybody that did step forward and say, hey, man, you know, I'm going to take care of you, I'm going to look out for you, wound up in the end disappointing me, taking advantage of me, and then stabbing me in the back, you know, and there was just an absence of anybody there to say, hey, man, take a breath. You know, let's talk about, you know, whatever, you know, let's talk about making sure that you're going to be okay. You know, I know that you're upset, but you can't just quit the band.
Yeah.
You have to, let's keep it together. Let's start to make some music on the side. Let's talk to Jerry. Let's figure some things out. Let's, like an adult thing. That's how relationships go, whether that's a relationship with your friend or, your wife or your spouse or your kids.
So when you were done with the Misfits, what was next after that? Like, as far as like, how long did it take before you came back and into the started recording another album, or even just started writing music and start your own thing?
It was right away. I had written so much material during Famous Monsters sessions, like just so much stuff. So it was like right into it, and I came home and Chud and I just started working and found some guys to play with.
Yeah.
And immediately just got back at it.
And did you say within the punk genre, or were you trying to branch off to something else?
I hated just being put in a box, and anytime I always said, it's not punk music. It might, if you want to talk about genres, I don't know. It's just, so no, I wasn't writing punk rock music, or I wasn't writing, metal music, or, I had, I had something to say, and I just wanted to put it out and make music. If anything, I wanted to just get away from the horror, where everything was just horror. I wanted to open it up a bit, and have it become something that was, again, like what Danzig did. His stuff was dark, and it wasn't horror, Misfits stuff.
Yeah, because you worked with Marky Ramone.
I did.
And what was it called? Blitzkrieg or Blitz?
Yeah,
Blitzkrieg.
Marky Ramone's Blitzkrieg.
Yeah, man. I like that. I like that song. You have another song out, All the Hallways. I believe that's what it's called.
With Marky?
No, just
we did When We Were Angels. If and When.
If and When. That's right. Because I know you did another one. All the Hallways. That was by yourself, right?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite songs. I love
it
that
is. and that's why I bring up like for some reason like no homo or anything, like your voice.
Oh, gay.
Like your voice is. I like the fact when you have songs like, because when with Danzig, it was just kind of like, and your voice was just so clear, and it just the tone of your voice, like that's why.
Thank you.
Like I went from like Misfits, and I'm like, I wonder what Michale Graves is doing now, and I would just search your name on Spotify and see like your own music, and that's why those other songs popped up. Yeah, because I even liked Zombie Romance. You did Zombie Romance.
Yeah,
that's what. And the beginning part to the song, kind of like like 60s type of feel.
Mm-hmm.
Like that little slow pace, and then it just goes off like balls to the wall later on.
Mm-hmm.
But the front part of the song is just like slow, like romantic, and like you could hear his voice, and like to me it's just very powerful, that the first part of the song.
Mike, you're lucky you're not in studio, because he is physically erect right now, and I feel kind of weird being that's it right now.
It would be hug time. it would be hug time.
That's kind of weird right now.
Oh God,
things are getting weird.
Man, he's got a great voice.
Hey, I can see. I can see.
Which like to me, it's like,
thank you.
I guess we might go this route. Which to me, it just seems like you have so much potential. Like after the fact, like I don't know. Like, do you think it was because of, I guess, your political views and everything that behind that it kind of just, you went stagnant, and there were people preventing you from blossoming to what you could have been?
Yeah, looking back on it, yes. Loki and I, Loki was played guitar with me for years and years, and he and I, we used to have this conversation, and and we'd be like, do you, and he would ask me, like, do you really think, like, we haven't gotten to, or you haven't gotten to where you should be because of all? And I used to say to him, I don't know, man. I don't know yet. I don't know yet. But now, where we're at today, right? September 29th, 2025, looking back, yes, I'm going to say, yeah, it had a lot to do with it because I don't suck. You know what I'm saying? Like if I, you know, I don't even think that I'm mediocre. I think I know that I'm really, really good. I'm talented. God has blessed me with talent. If it's one, you know, I suck at a lot of things. I screw up a lot of things, but there's one thing that I got, man. I fucking got is this music thing. And when you put me on stage, with anybody, again, just like you put me on the field and I'm going to win the fucking game. I'm going to win. Yeah. Like I feel that in my heart, and that fire has always been there. So, but when you look back over the years and you look at the trajectory, and when you do the analysis, the autopsy of my 30 fucking years in music, you go, what? Like, what? Huh? And then you add the part of the cancellation and the thing, and it all makes sense.
Yeah, because I'm sure I'm not the first one to tell you that you have a great voice. I'm sure you've heard it a lot. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So to me, I feel like he has that voice that he could have gone, even when, you know how artists now feature, like on everything, like the famous thing with Lil Wayne, how he would just feature on everyone's music.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Even if you would be able to feature, like, have there been instances where you want to feature on someone's music, but they're just like, you know what, no, just because of the whole political thing?
No, but I'll tell you, there's a story sort of like that where I collaborated with Nargle, and you know, Nargle was from the band Behemoth.
Okay. And
you know, if you don't know the story of Nargle or the things of Behemoth, right? They're a really, really dark band, like not a Christian band, not big on the whole Jesus thing. Yeah. I'm a born again Christian. I've been a Christian all my life. So we're complete opposites. Anyhow, and Nargo and I are friends. We collaborated on this song for a project of his called what is it called? Forget what the name of the project is. So it was a song called Blues and Cocaine. And so he turns the record into the record company, and the record company sees that he and I have collaborated on this song, and they were like, "We're going to shut this record down. We're not going to release this record." Damn. Because you know, you got to take this song off with Michale Graves, because everybody hates Michale Graves because he's the conservative punk. He's that guy, you know. Right. And Nargle was like, "No. Hey, no, we're not taking this song off. I don't care what you think of him. I don't care what you think he's doing right or what you think he's doing wrong. Has nothing to do with me or has nothing to do with this song." And totally went to bat for me. So yes, that you know, who I am is always popping up in things. A couple of years ago, a friend of mine, you know, who's in the music industry. Let's say that he's in the music industry, like one of these guys where if he decided tomorrow he doesn't want to work, he would never ever have to work again. He's got more money than, like, you know, if he loses $10,000, he's just like, nah, whatever. Don't worry about it. Tomorrow's Tuesday. You know, that kind of guy, like stupid money. And has managed some really, really great talent, still does, doing great, like stadium tours. And a couple years ago, and I had met him years ago from working through a faith-based organization. And so I got to talking, and I called him up. I said, "Listen, man, I need for you, you know, this is the story." You know, he knew about the politics and what was happening. I said, "Is it really, am I blacklisted? Like, should I stop emailing and calling people and sending, like, because I'm getting tired. Like, I don't know if maybe just my computer and my phone is the only one broken in the whole world, but I can't get any traction,
Right.
you know, and I do, sometimes I would get in the door, I would talk to these people and it would be like, oh, this is great. You know, and we'd have these great conversations. I know who you are, we have respect, your voice, you're this, you're that, awesome. And then I would just never hear from them again, you know?
Yeah.
And so he deployed into the music industry there, and he said, "Listen, I'll call you back in a couple of days. Give me a week at best, and let me ask around." You know, he's based out of Nashville. So I hear from him, you know, a little bit less than a week after our initial phone call about this subject, and he goes, "You're dead in the water, bro." He's like, "Nobody's gonna touch you." Even people, again, you know, that respect you, they're not going to touch you, because if they take you on as a project or, you know, or help you, then the band is going to get pissed, or the lawyer's going to get pissed, or the sponsor's going to get pissed, or this is going to, and they just don't want the hassle. They don't want the stink on them. And then we talked about strategies and other things to sort of go different routes and counter it. So, yeah, I mean, it's true. It's true.
You know, with America, everybody loves a good comeback story, right? And
yeah, sure, yeah. There
we go, Rocky.
I got a Rocky poster right up there.
Hell yeah! Get Mick back. Get Mick back. We got to do this. Get him on the grave.
Rock. Get up, Rock.
Let me ask you this: what is there? So what exact first quote was it that put you on everybody's negative side? Like what did you say that everybody like that got you blacklisted automatically?
So in 2003, 2004, Mike Burkett, Fat Mike from NoFX, started a website called punkvoter.com. Punkvoter.com, his mission was to mobilize and sign up to vote, to register 500,000 young people as a voting bloc, to especially to vote George Bush out of office. The organization was a 501(c), so they couldn't specifically endorse a candidate, but it was, you know, very, very obvious that they hated George Bush. Which was fine. So, you know, I had a rapport obviously with Fat Mike and saw that this was happening and saw that it was just coming from one direction. It was just the left side of things. It was just that side that they were going to give to a lot of kids, who were targeting kids that had never been any part of a discussion like that. They were just entering politics, young people, you know, they don't know what to think. So there's a certain responsibility on people that are disseminating information. So I got in touch with Fat Mike. I was like, yo, man, you know, listen, I get what you're doing. I think it's great, actually, to take it to that, another level up intellectually. You know, it wasn't like MTV, you know, Rock the Vote or something like that. This was something hybrid. It was a beautiful thing. There was, you know, he raised $1 million that was funding it, which is awesome as well. Damn. But they didn't. So, you know, I said to him, but you have to understand that there's some, you know, there's a libertarian side of things. Like there's people out there, there's guys out there, there's groups out there, conservative minded folks like myself who love punk rock music, who love heavy music, who want to be part of the conversation. That doesn't necessarily, you know, want to shut down what you're saying, but just want to counter it, right? They just say, well, wait a second, this is what I think, and this is how I see the world. Right. And I thought that would be a responsible thing to do, especially, again, as I said before, the focus was on young people that, you know.
Get them involved.
Right. So he was like, nope, not interested. Not at all. Not at all.
It sounds like something he would say.
Yeah. You know, all right, fine. I get it, you know. So I had a relationship with a guy by the name of Nick Rizzuto, who's a producer of a guy named Andrew Wilkow, who is now a very popular host on Sirius XM 125 on the Patriot channel. But he was broadcasting on WABC out of New York way back when. and he would play Misfits, like real heavy music, like in his bumpers. And like he was like talking political stuff on, you know, coming out of New York, playing heavy music. I was like, what the? So I called this dude up, and he and I started talking. And so Andrew and I had a rapport, and we became friends. And he and Nick were starting this website called Conservative Punk to push back on this punk voter thing that was happening. And they asked me if I would want to be involved. And I said, yeah, sure, absolutely. I'll be involved. And so I started to write and publish articles through Conservative Punk and through other networks and outlets, both in print and on the internet in 2004. You know, again, because now let's go back earlier to our conversation. I was talking to you about, even before I was in the Misfits, I ran in these punk circles and these skinhead circles. And so I got a history of punk rock. Like, this is punk rock on a street level. Like, this is what this means. Sharpies, you know, and the militant skins and you know, and just all of the different factions and what was happening. Again, and I had experience too when I got into the Misfits as well, because it was at the end there of the punk skinhead war. There was a culture war that was happening, literally, you know, and it was taking place on the streets and in the clubs and in the zines. So fast forward now to 2004, I have like Fat Mike too. I'm not saying that any of those guys didn't have this, but at least on our side, there wasn't too many punk rocker people like myself that were like in the Republican Party. You know what I'm saying? It was still, this wasn't Trump days. Like, you'd think of a Republican like these golf course, you know, loafer wearing fools that we all hate. But it wasn't that way. So I wrote an article, and the first one was called Conservative Punk with a question mark. I wrote an article called Punk Rock Hates America. Now, my message was the ideology of Marxists, Marxism and Freud and Jung and, you know, the words of Chomsky and, Che Guevara, all of these ideologies that tear away and demonize the idea of what America was and actually is. It was this poison inside, and you know, the anarchists and the nihilism, you know, of the left and the right. I knew very, very well, whether you were a white power skinhead, which there were absolute, like, real white power skinheads connected to very, you know, deep cells in America that when we would play, they were there, and they would fight every night. They would fight, you know, and the same on the left. There were the anarchists and the nihilists that were just as militant and just as violent and just as hateful. These are the people that want to destroy everything in order to build their crazy utopia. And so what I was warning was that if we continue on a street level, again, through all these magazines and through the music of punk rock and through the music of hardcore and thrash and these subculture genres that are the cauldron under the fire of culture, if we continue to feed these young people this ideology and don't give them a way out and tell them that, wait a second, there's something else. If you keep feeding into this, there's going to be violence in the streets. These people are going to become disenfranchised, more depressed, more dependent on drugs and alcohol and things that they're grasping for, that they can't hold on to. They're going to get mad. And people are eventually going to die. And now let's shoot 21 years forward. And now think of what we all just saw with the murder of Charlie Kirk and all this other violence, these spasms of violence that we see. And even the BLM riots and the George Floyd riots, that's the same mindset. That's the same mindset. And so that was my message, that we have to have these conversations, and we can't just propagandize this place, this, you know, in music and in culture with these things, because now we see what it breeds. Like the baby that's been born is it's not a, you know, just a monster that you're singing about in a Misfits song. It's a real fucking monster that has been unleashed in our country.
Yeah. And so let's go back to what you were saying, like when you're growing up within the punks and the you know, the punk era and the skinheads. Like, so when you mentioned that, are we talking Nazi skinheads? Is that what we're talking about? Because
they were straight up Nazi skinheads. Yeah, these dudes would take their shirts off, bro, and they'd have swastikas, and they'd be Zeke Highland, and you would go to the Paramus Park Mall, you know, where I grew up in Bergen County, the Garden State Plaza. You would go to the mall, and these kids, they had no problem. Zeke Highland right there in the mall. It was straight up. They were real stuff. The Bergen Bulldogs and you know, Hammer Skins, real shit. I went to an alternative high school. I got taken out of my regular high school. It's a whole different story. So I went to like the bad kids high school, right? And there were some guys in there again, you know, and you know, so there. I was certainly a minority, you know, in this school, and there were white powered dudes in there, and they would stop in the halls while some of the other people that weren't white, and it was crazy town. So I know I'm very, very familiar with white power skinheads, with Nazi skinheads, like for real.
Yeah, because I know, like, one of the big things on I was seeing, like, I think it was in San Antonio, one of the shows that you're trying to start or that they're trying to do, they're trying to shut you down. A lot of it, you know, the 7 people that came on camera, you know, they're talking about how you know, a fascist and you're a white supremacist, and you know, the fact that, you know, being, you know, if you know, look up anything about you and you're mentioning in your past, you know, you had that around you. Now that doesn't mean necessarily that, you know, you're guilty. Automatically, you're guilty by association, right? And then the fact that you're a white man and your head is shaved, so automatically everybody's like, oh, wait a minute, he probably still is, right? Like what? Have you ever thought about growing out your hair so that with these guys won't be like, you know what?
I wish I could.
That's funny.
My kids asked me the same question.
You might not be a skinhead, man. Don't have more fuel to fire, bro.
Listen, if I grew my hair out, it would be like Ben Franklin, you know?
Hey, listen, I'd rather be Ben Franklin than be labeled a fucking neo-Nazi. You might have to roll with some punches, but like, do you?
Yeah,
I mean,
you know,
you can understand where that comes from, right? That idea that you're a neo-Nazi just because, you know, you've talked about it previously, you know, from your upbringing, and then now you kind of, you know, with the look, I guess, and the fact that, you know, being a punk rocker, you know, automatically everybody wants to put that stigma on people.
Yeah, but I still don't see where, you know, where those two things come together, right? I mean, I do. I understand. Right. I understand. However, you know, it's the content of your character, right? Not the color of your skin. It's not what you present, right? So if certainly I look a certain way, okay, but when you start to, you know, any sort of interviews that I've ever done, or you look at things that I've been involved in, organizations that I've been involved with, right. You know, things that I've spoken about or I've advocated for, including, for example, death row inmates. I advocated for and worked with aside and in conjunction with the Innocence Project. And there were far more non-whites, you know, that are on death row and that need help and need advocating for, which I did and learned about, educated myself. And, you know, so again, my point is if there's nothing that you can go back into time and say, all right, there he is being a white supremacist. You can absolutely go back and go, okay, there he is fighting that sort of thing. There he is speaking out against, you know, those things more times than I remember. Again, you know, because like I said, back in the 90s, that was the you know, there was a total rejection of that racist part of punk rock, hardcore, anything that had a racist component to it. It was absolutely shunned. And no matter what band you were or who you were with, even if it came down to physical violence, people did what they had to do to totally reject that. And I stood with it and for it, and I still do. And it was a beautiful thing, because then by, you know, the early 2000s, you know, it was there was that racist part of it was pushed out, and nobody wanted anything to do with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so it kind of seems like you're getting the Trump. I guess you're being labeled like the way he is, because when he doesn't, you know, when he came on and said whatever about Charlottesville, and you know, they always give the thing, you know, well, you never talked to them or said anything negative about them. You always said, you know, there's good people, you know, all that clickbait bullshit, right? That's out there. Have you ever just come out, like, thought about just coming out and, you know, just saying, you know what, dude, or you know what, guys, I just want to put it out there. I don't like these guys. I don't, you know, agree with these guys. I'm not this. I'm not what you guys think I am. Has that ever come to your mind?
I've been doing it for 21 years.
Yeah, because
really, with brief seasons of quiet,
right?
But yeah, I'm a seasoned veteran at this. I've been doing this for 21 years. I just recently released a documentary called An American Prayer, and it addresses all of these things. It addresses all of these things with examples and some really great footage and music. Unfortunately, there's a certain group of people that will never get to, like the certain part, you know, group of people that you just go, look, the sky is blue, and if they believe it's red, no amount of proof is going to. They're just stuck in that bias,
right?
And you can't pull them out of that. And again, there's a whole psychology to that, and you can talk about, you know, propaganda and all sorts of other things where these people are certainly hypnotized. Yeah. And you know, the larger conversation in that there's a mass psychosis that you can have a sociological discussion about, right? And talk about how authoritarian and totalitarian regimes and mindsets take over. It's like mob mentality sort of thing. Right. That has to do with technology. It has to do with propaganda. It has to do with information wars. But so there's a certain section that they're just, you know, they're going to drink the Kool-Aid, man. They're going to go down with the ship. Yeah. Doesn't matter. Yeah. So, and that, so. You know,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, and you know, that's unfortunate because, you know, those are the people that you see waving the flags, and you know, they see Michale Graves and they just know that Michale Graves, Misfits, punk rock, you know, and so all of the boxes are checked, and they hear all the different words: conservative, you know, January 6th, Proud Boys, Christian, he's white, and so it checks all the boxes, and it's just like and so I am deemed, you know, Nazi, fascist, and so then my soul, I'm no longer a human, and the same thing, you know, I'm not the only one. This is what we see in all over society. That's why people were laughing at the Charlie Kirk thing, like, whatever, who cares? Shoot, because, you know, when you take, you know, the humanity out of somebody, that's what they teach you in boot camp. Like, that's how you kill other people. That's how they teach you, you know, you have to take the humanity out of somebody. That's why, you know, you have these slangs. You can call somebody this, you call somebody that, because you take when you dehumanize them in that way, well, then they're, you know, it's easier to destroy them. Yeah, and so, you know, I have become that thing. So it's not the content of my character. What has he done? Yeah. You know, what are his connections to how could, you know, how could this be true? You know, why is this true? Let's have a longer conversation about this, perhaps. Or it could just be like, whatever, you know, I disagree with him, but instead there's this concerted effort to literally destroy me.
Damn.
I think the biggest issues is the fact that society has to put labels on people. It's like everyone seems to be having to be conservative or liberal or libertarian or whatever you want to pick. A Nazi, a leftist. There's a difference between leftists and libertarians and conservatives and everything. Everyone puts a label on someone. As soon as you have a label, you already fall under that microscope. If you decide like, okay, I'm conservative, okay, well, you must be a racist. You must be this. You must be that. You must be this and that. And if you're a leftist, okay, you must be a socialist, a communist. And that's the thing, like the fact that we have labels, and when you, the fact that you started the whole conservative punk, it's like, oh, people hear conservative, all right, so I already know what this guy's about,
Exactly.
without taking into account your character,
Right.
And I think when people, because my stepdaughter, after the whole Charlie Kirk thing happened, and my stepdaughter's in middle school, and she saw the video just like everyone else. It went around and everyone saw the video and everything. She saw it. I told her, you know what? Like, people are crazy nowadays. If a middle schooler tells you, what political party are you? Just tell them, I'm nothing.
Yeah.
Because just for the mere fact of whatever label you decide to put on, it depends on whatever label you have. That's how they're going to treat you.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Whatever you, right, wherever your allegiance is, that's how the culture, that's how society is going to treat you. One of the things that I loved about punk rock, and one of the things that I love about the idea of our country is, you know, punk rock and the idea of America is supposed to break down those walls. Because when you balkanize people and you just put them here, let's put these people here in this box, we're going to put these people over here, then it's easy to control people.
Yep.
Because then once you know, one ring to find them, one ring to, you know, box them together, and then one ring to rule them all. Like that's the thing. But what I believe what punk rock ideology is, and the idea of a republic like America is to adhere to just extreme radical individualism. Like, whoever you think you are, like, you go be you, and don't put yourself in a box. Because if you put yourself in that box, and all right, maybe you want to be in that box, but you kind of dig some of this box too. You know, you like green, you like a little blue, maybe you like a little bit of red too. Who knows? It's okay to like those things, and you shouldn't, you know, say, well, you know, me being me, I kind of like a little bit of red, and instead of rejecting that, you go and you like a little bit of red. The punk rock thing, when you look back at they made their own clothes. It was an individual, whatever colors you were, whatever you believed, whoever you loved, whoever you didn't love. It wasn't necessarily anarchy, but it was just a big tent sort of thing where it was just you be you, and don't let the institutions that have built these walls around us do those things to us. We have to remain free and individual, because when we start to strangle those things, whether it's speech or our outward appearance or our inward self, or any of these things, then the colors start to fade and everything starts to turn to gray. And then you get a very dampered down, scary situation, a dark dystopia. And we don't want that. We want a sharp, in focus, beautiful rainbow. That's what society is supposed to be, you know, and that's the culture that I want to nourish, a renaissance. And you look at the Renaissance, it's just a beautiful, beautiful thing. And again, you know, and that's why one of the things that we're having a problem with, another thing that I used to talk about when I had the ability to talk to people, was there was an intellectual part of all this that not only in our spaces, but in education and culture and music and all of these things is knowing history. There's an ignorance. Like if you don't know what if you really don't know who the Nazis were and what they did to people and why they did it and where did the Nazis come, if you don't know these things, you can just, you don't have respect for them, so you can throw these sort of things around. But when you have an idea and you know where a dark dystopia will get you, right? The Renaissance, looking at the Renaissance coming out of the Black Plague and just like everybody on Earth, right? 80% of the Earth dying. Talk about coming out of, the dark part of the forest into this. So, there's an intellectual part of everything that is missing, and that's far-reaching, and that's a far-reaching thing.
Yeah. And you're not the first person that I hear talk about that we need to start a conversation, and I agree with that. I agree with the whole conversation thing, but the biggest thing that falls through that is the fact that you're not able to admit anything. If you can have a conversation and you think that your views are correct and the other person thinks their views are correct, regardless of the conversation they kind of have, whether it's a mutual respect, they're respectful, and they disagree, then they just agree to disagree at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And doesn't matter how much you try to convince someone, and if they're on their team, they're going to stay on their team, regardless of the whole conversation talk. And to me, it's just like the ability to be able to be proven wrong and being able to just say, you're right.
Yeah.
And that's what's missing here. That's what's missing, because I've seen so many people say conversation this, conversation that. There's political pundits out there that it's a left-leaning and right-leaning. They're talking, but they're just disagreeing on the whole thing. They're never coming to a compromise. They're never admitting defeat. Like, okay, you know what, you're correct on this, on
that's
this
right.
issue. And that's the thing. Like, if we're putting ourselves into boxes of political teams, and at the same time, we're not being able to have that malleable mind to be able, you know what, okay, you know what, I may be wrong on this, but the fact that everyone wants to never admit defeat, no one wants to admit that they're wrong. So that's like another issue within itself, is the fact that everyone has that pride within themselves. It's like, you know what, no, I picked the correct part, I picked the correct side, and no matter what they do, I'm going to stick to that side. Whatever bullshit excuse they have, whatever bullshit excuse my team has for whatever this person did, I'm going to follow suit.
We're in a very difficult situation because the one guy really that was the conversation guy that represented, hey, let's have a conversation about these things that divide us in very profound ways. Let's have a conversation about it. That guy just got shot in front of, we've all seen it, and it's just multiplied exponentially, the whole JFK thing. This psychologically, to see that murder the way that we did, and to understand it again in a cultural, in what it means for our society, is crazy, because it was like the conversation part of everything, just ended. Gavin McInnes said it really great, because he's another one who's been talking, the same as me. Like, hey, if we don't have these conversations, if we don't challenge each other, if we don't look at each other, if we don't meet each other, and these bad things are going to happen. He said that he felt like Noah. He said he felt like Noah, right, with the ark and everything, and that the Charlie Kirk assassination was the rain. People used to be like, "Oh man, what are you telling? This is crazy. No, it's never gonna happen. It's not that bad. It's not gonna." And then all of a sudden, it starts raining.
Right.
But yeah, man, we're at a place where again, people like you and I think that we can have a conversation, and I'm sure that there's things that we disagree upon. And there's a lot of people that I've had conversations with that disagree with me. Some people that, again, I'll use Loki as an example. Loki's my brother. I've known that kid for a long, long time, and we are brothers. And there's a lot of things that we don't agree on. There's a lot of people like that in my life. Mm-hmm. But where it's at is that there is a certain section of people now that are heavily funded. They're militant. They're pissed. They're backed up by other nefarious things that are connected to. It's just it's a bad situation. It's a bad situation.
Yep. Is that the George Soros? The George Soros of the world?
Well, yes, yeah. Because even going back to Punk Voter, that was one of the, George Soros. There was leftist money with these ideologies, with these groups and these people and these efforts that have millions of dollars behind them to push a certain agenda and to push a certain ideology to get us into a situation to where certain things can happen, like, for example, violence on the street, right? Like that movie Civil War that they, the $350 million budget movie about the Civil War, where the Western states secede and then they come and they kill the president. Our country's 250 years old. That's like a drop in the bucket. Like, I've drank beer in places that are thousands of years old. Like, for example, right? You go over to Europe and other places in the world, they're just like America. Like, you guys are just babies. Yeah. And that's okay. But we haven't been through all of these different things that when you go back and you look at these nations and societies and cultures that go back thousands of years, tens of thousands of years, there's always, these types of conflicts that happen, whether it's the revolution, the Russian Revolution, or you can point to the French Revolution, or even the American Revolution, the Civil War of America. When you start to look at all those different things, again, that's the intellectual part of what's missing. Yeah. When you really take time and instead of just smoking weed and playing Xbox and just, doing nothing with your life, I'm not saying that you have to be a scholar, but when you look at the different parts of history, these moments that societies go through where there's these violent conflicts like this, you start to see redundancies where this just isn't a flash in the pan. There's like, what's going on here? We know what's going on. It's not something that has just happened in a vacuum. And so you look at this situation where the radical part of America and its different tentacles and the things that are giving it fire and momentum, whether it's media or politicians or prominent people. And we're at a very, very perilous place now because of what we were just saying. There's a lot of people, even on my side of things or our side of things, or like normal, I would say normal people, but like calm people that I know. And obviously people on the other side, they're done talking. It's like, we're not going to, like, I'm not talking to that Nazi fascist. Well, he's not going to, he's not going to hear what I say. And then the other side goes, well, I don't want to hear that Marxist communist guy. Fuck him.
Yeah.
And then what happens?
Oh, the violence starts.
The violence starts.
The violence
always does.
So with this hour and change that we spent with you, I know we told you, we're not going to hold anything back, right? It is what it is, because the best way to get to a people's, or to get to understanding who a person is by talking freely and truths and whatnot. What's one of the biggest things you'd want people to actually know about you that's completely wrong about you, besides the whole, that you're a neo-Nazi or whatnot? What's the biggest thing you'd like to, clear the air on right now, with people listening to see that, you know, you're not this devil that everybody's making you out to be?
No.
What's the biggest thing that keeps you, like, just like irks you, that you just want to clear the air on right now?
Well, it's that. It's because when you say Nazi or
Yeah.
you say fascist, it's like the exact opposite of who and what I am. It's the exact inverse of the way that I've lived my life, the things that I've dedicated myself and my time to, my talents. It's against the way that I raised my children, the way that I was raised by my parents. I'm not a perfect person. If we want to talk about the things that I've come up short in the world, like I have a long list, and we can go another hour, 2 hours to talk about that.
I think that's everybody.
But certainly anybody who believes that I have hate in my heart for anyone that's different than me, Black people or Hispanic people or Asian people, gay people, or I don't care about any of those things. I was raised, you know, my mother was very, 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 very strict about content of character, not color of your skin type things. You know, my mother and father raised me, and I certainly do believe that, you know, everybody is worthwhile. Everybody came from the same place. Like
Right.
God made everybody. And so therefore I don't have hate in my heart. I've dedicated myself to the service and duty of other people, especially people who are lost, who are hurt, who are in need, you know, who are sad, and maybe just, you know, need some sort of love. That is where I've always begun all of the things that I've done. All of the projects and the music and the things that I do are purpose driven through that. Dare I say, you know, my Christian heart, knowing how imperfect it is. But I've lived my life, again, whatever it was, you know, like my father, to be in service of other people. And I feel a duty to that, even in music. And I've never put labels on that. You know, it's funny that I'm called such a hateful person, to where, you know, here in my home country, you know, I don't like, you know, immigrants or minorities, but most of my time is spent out of the country, whether it's in Mexico or Central America, Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala, or South America. I'm about to spend a month in South America. I was in Israel in July, and I'll be in Israel again in January, and Europe in February. And it's funny how I'm all of these places with all of these, you know, people that aren't white,
Right.
and it's a great time, and there's so much love, and it's an absolutely incredible experience. But yet when I come home, I'm fighting this crazy monster that we've created here in our country.
How are you received outside of the States, like by the people that you're mentioning right now? You know, being in, you know, being with the name that you have, right? With whatever follows you. How are you being received by people outside?
Like a rock star, like a rock star. My security, you know, I have security while I'm over there. Sometimes the security detail, they fucking hate me because, you know, the kids, they come, you know, not, you know, kids, but like people come and they find out, I don't know how they do it, but they'll find out what hotel I'm staying at, and they'll mass at the hotel. And I see people standing outside, like, I'm like, we have to go outside, and I stand there and I take pictures with people, and I ask them their names, and I sign them things, and you know, and I guess, you know, joking, I say, you know, security, my manager hates it because, you know, it's like, all right, come on, Mike, we gotta go inside. Gotta go inside. I was like, nah, you know, there's, so it's like that. I have, you know, I'm loved. I'm so fortunate. I'm so blessed.
Right.
You know, every now and again, obviously, I'm briefed on some things. You know, this, you know, cell in town is unhappy that you're here, or we're hearing some things here where this is happening. But, and it's again, and it's an unfortunate thing, especially here in America, but also overseas, where, you know, I have to sit down with people, and we have to go through, you know, with authorities and figure out if it's like is this a credible threat? Like, do we need, you know, that's insane. That's insane to have to think about. But when I'm overseas, fortunately, that level of threat is significantly lower, which is crazy. You know, when I come to America, sometimes indeed I have to liaison with law enforcement and check on credible threats and stuff. It's a lot, you know, I'm alone most of the time.
Damn. So,
but armed.
But armed. Your security
Absolutely.
guards, your security guards, they're not like the Proud Boys or some shit, right? You got a free sprinkle.
No.
You got a few of these. You got to sprinkle in a few of these Mexicans, a little Guatemala. You got to sprinkle in all kinds of shit.
Let's make it diverse.
We got to get you some street cred, bro.
Now that's not saying that those groups and other groups of, let's just say, outlaws, right?
Right.
Have not, or I'll tell you what, again, you know, security, it's all about redundancy. So certainly, you know, I'll have off-duty officers, or, you know, like a professional security ring around me. But then there might be a ring of Proud Boys, and then a ring of, you know, outlaws or somebody else on the so there's people looking out for me, you know. There's always people looking out for me. And the only place I get creeped out and I don't always feel safe, unfortunately, is when I'm in America. Damn,
when you're home. So
when I'm home.
So going on to this new tour that you're doing, right? Acoustic. Your acoustic music that you're coming out with the new, is it all a new album that you're putting out right now, or is it you playing some of the bangers?
Well, right now I'm working on a new album, you know, full band. I'm working with some really exciting people. I don't want to let the cat totally out of the bag yet. But yeah, it's like the real deal. Going into a studio, you know, there's some producers that I'm working with that are sort of out of the box guys. So yeah, it's an exciting time, you know, for the Third Eye convention. You know, when I do the acoustic stuff, of course, I always play Dig Up Her Bones. I'll play Scream, Crying on Saturday Night. You know, same with my full band.
Right.
You know, we always we have to play those songs. Descending Angel. You got to play the hits. Yeah, for sure.
I know. Vince was about to get.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. I lost my train of thought.
You got it all to the music.
I got derailed.
But I mean, I think when you have these intimate shows that you're gonna be doing, like you're going to be out here on October 18th with the Third Eye. With the Third Eye, it's not a convention, right? It's a tour, I guess it is.
Festival?
The carnival. There you go, the carnival.
Yeah.
Do you feel like this? Because I've always felt when they do anything like an unplugged or an acoustic, it's a lot more intimate. It's a lot more personable, where you can get just things off your chest, and you feel where the artist is coming from a lot more than you would, you know, just your regular stage show. With you know, all the lights and all that crazy, you know, the pyrotechnics and all that shit.
Yeah,
I've always loved more just the acoustic, because that's where you feel, you know, especially when if it's your personal song, you feel, you know, the love or whatever you put into that song live from that person right then and there, as opposed to just going through just like you know, I got to get through the song, as opposed to, you know, doing it acoustically. Is that something that you made sure with this tour that you made sure it had to be that way so you could kind of just draw people back into the beauty of your music?
100%. 100%. And the word intimate is perfect because, you know, so intimate. So it's just like back in the day before there was amplifications, right? You just had these guys writing these songs. So you just had the performer and the guitar, nothing, naked. So one of the things that I love about performing just with the acoustic guitar is the challenge of being a manipulator of energy and being able to, it's one thing, you know, sure, you can just strum the guitar and sing and just make noise. Okay. But can you make that noise and impregnate it with such emotion, with such raw emotion that it seeps into people? It seeps into, you know, their ears, they hear it, but something happens to their heart and there's a change in them and they can feel it. Like, can you do that with your voice and with the sounds that are coming out of the guitar? And I can do that. And that's what I do when I play these shows that are just me and the acoustic guitar. It's intimate because it's such an emotional thing. You know, certainly I'm sure it's fun to, you know, it's cool to watch me actually execute it and do the things that I'm doing and watch me work the microphone and all the technical things, watch me throw the ball. But you can also just kind of close your eyes and just find your space and just wherever this music or whatever the music means to people, and just go there. You know, there's so many people that these records are 20 years old, 25 years old. So there's this season in life. I always hear, you know, oh, and you know, we used to just go and sit on the hill and we would put it on and we would listen to it, we'd drink a beer and this and that, or, you know, people have these experiences. You know, I talk to veterans like, oh man, you know, we were trudging through the desert and we had the big speakers on the LRADs and we were doing that and we were doing American Psycho. And so, you know, there's that energy there. And so for people to be able to have that intimate, powerful experiences, is something that I love to try to, you know, achieve.
Right.
And like, when you do acoustic, do you feel like yourself, like you get in that state of flow and that you transcend and you forget that you're even on stage and you're just connecting to your song and to your singing and you forget that the audience is even there? Because I know, like, at a smaller scale, like I know there's times where like I'm listening to music and like in my truck, and then I'll turn up the volume and I catch myself singing to the music, and then I miss my exit or I forget where I'm going. It's just 'cause, like,
I've been there, sure.
Like I'm just so into like the moment. I'm so into the song, like I'm forgetting where I'm at. I'm listening to the lyrics, the emotion behind the singer when they're singing it. Because there's times where singers have like a little cracking to their voice and they leave that into the song where, you know, like they're really putting like their whole energy, their whole emotion into that one song.
Yeah. I certainly go to different places. You know, when you watch me perform, I close my eyes a lot because it's a very, very visual thing. I always know that I'm on stage, and I never lose myself from that. And that's just me being trained that way to know where I am on the stage and what's happening all the time. Even if it's, you know, I do like what the whales do. If I just open my eyes for a second, just take a snapshot of what's happening, for situational awareness. And so there's all sorts of things going on in my mind. Again, technically, my breath, my this, my everything. But then there's this side of me, absolutely, the experiential side that's happening, that needs to happen in order for you to feel what I'm feeling. I explain, it's like I'm going through a fucking dream, like shit, like I'm seeing colors, I'm remembering people. It's like a dream. I can see things, I can smell things. It's so like it's such a visual, three-dimensional experience for me. So yeah. And I immerse myself in that. At least I try to. You you know, and that's the thing with performing live. Sometimes it's hard, you know, sometimes it's hard to get to that place and to disconnect from, you know, oh, my fucking knee hurts and my back is tight and, you know, my voice is tired. So, you know, I need to support it down here and I got to turn my head a little bit like this. And like, oh, this fucking guy keeps throwing something at me. And, you know, and I can't get to that place, but knowing that challenge is therein is the beautiful part of it. You have to figure out how to, you know, how do I calm my mind? How do I calm my spirit and tap in? So it's just, I love doing it. I love doing it. I love it.
That's amazing. So yeah, so October 18th out here at 1230 Barino Road in Mesquite, New Mexico. You will be on stage tentatively at 8 p.m. for what I'm seeing here, and I know it's one of the more intimate shows that it's going to be amazing. What are the so when you're doing your song list for a performance, what's the one song that best would describe you that you feel that you need to play at any show or every show?
Dig Up Her Bones.
Okay. Why does that best describe you?
I think because it's certainly the most popular song that I ever wrote, and I wrote that song when I was 16. And you know, like you know, when I read the words, I look at the words, I'm just like, I don't even necessarily know if it's specifically about something. I wrote those words because I felt a certain way, you know, at the time, and I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what. That's why it's like anything, anywhere, because anything and anywhere, that's a lot of different things, and those are a lot of different places, right? But it's just so universal, and what I put into that song again was unadulterated me, and it was just me sitting in a room just feeling a certain way, trying to figure that out, and being so overcome by that emotion that I needed to put it into a song. And then I go all over the world, some places where they don't know English. Like I can't have a conversation with people. But when they sing Dig Up Her Bones, oh, they know all the words. It makes them feel a certain way. Like each part, like, okay, you know, and so when I play that song, that's when everything comes together, and I say thank you God for this life. Like it really is not at all what I thought that it was going to be, you know. And I've been really shitty about a lot of things, and I've blamed God for a lot of things that I shouldn't have, and so on and so forth. And you know, again, my life hasn't been easy, and I'm certain, you know. But when I play that song, it's just, I see my kids, I see my life young, I see it all in all of these people, and it just all comes together. And it's such an awesome thing. I love when I get on stage.
You could tell, you could feel you could feel it by the way you're just, the description that you're giving on it. And that's something that is, I mean, I you know, doing the pod, it's weird just when you have 2 or 3 people you're talking to here. I can't imagine, you know, an arena full, or, you know, even just whether it's 30 people or 40 people just there looking at you, and you're there to change or get their mind away from whatever it is that they're going through, or whatever it is that they're, because, you know, one of the things that I've always said about music, and the reason I love music is that if you hear a song, like you said, Dig Up Her Bones, which is now about 30 years old now, 20-something years old.
It's older than that again. Yeah. But you do the math. I wrote it when I was 16. I just turned 50.
Damn. Yeah, so when you hear a song, you know, that was that old, or you know, you go back and you think about, you know, when you first heard it and how it impacted you, and all the memories of everything that you're going through, the smells, and you know, everything just comes back, and you're transformed back into that moment, no matter how old you are. That's one of the things that's amazing about music, and I you know, I applaud you for being able to provide, you know, like Vince here, that was what got him through middle school. That's what,
Right.
that's, I mean, like I said, this dude had a boner earlier just talking to you. So, it's something that you made an impact in people's lives, and hopefully we will be getting to the point now, that we stop putting labels on each other and we focus on the merits and the character of people the way we should, because it's easy to follow the group of just pointing at fingers at people and saying, "Oh, I don't like him because he doesn't like him, so we're not gonna like him." Focus, and everybody needs to be an individual, make up their own minds of, what's really what, and who this person really is before we could actually say the word hate, because hate is such a strong fucking word, and there's no in the temperature of the times that we're in right now, with this cancel culture and this social media that's just trying to destroy us. We got to remember that if we destroy each other, there's nothing left. We're screwed. The community is what we need to survive and be, find that tranquility. And we need we need people to achieve that. And it's better to accept somebody's flaws and admit when we have our own flaws and come to that common ground. And hopefully we could do that. And hopefully your music with this, with the Third Eye Carnival going down, like I said, on October 18th, hopefully that'll be a start to where people could have that intimate moment with you and be able to finally just say, you know what, everything I read, everything I heard was complete bullshit. And hopefully we could get you back to where you need to be, man.
Now I wanted to ask, are you gonna sing? You're gonna sing Saturday night, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
He's all right. So
That's my. I'm biased. That's my favorite song.
you should bring Vince up there on stage when you sing it, and then you can sing it to him and let him feel important for a moment.
One last thing on the song, "All the Hallways."
Yeah.
I wanted to ask this line. I'm not sure if it's correct or not. But the line that I thought I heard is "What I live to die for."
What I live to die for. Yeah, that's right.
That
is to spend this time.
Yeah.
Is to spend these times with you.
Yeah, that part to me it gets me every time, because like the contradiction, but like it makes sense. Like if you look into it, it's like to me it feels like it takes a special kind of person to come up with something like that. And I just
appreciate that.
And I just a special kind of person to understand that.
I appreciate that.
I get that. I get that. That's like that to me. That line just. That's why I say, like, you have talent. Like you have talent. Like if
Vince approves.
Thank you.
If people can actually like listen to the voice, listen to like the lyrics, it's like, and I like to like, because there's another song from someone else. I forgot what it said. I think it said youth is wasted on the young. Which when you look into it, it's like it makes sense. Like I wish I knew what I knew now back when I was like 22.
Yeah.
And like all the different decisions I would make, knowing how life is. So like I like when I hear songs and they have these kind of little lyrics that are kind of like contradicting or they don't really make sense, and the fact that you come up with it, like I just love that.
Yeah. You gotta make
Thank
people
you.
think. Gotta make
Thank
people
you.
think, man. Mike, before we head out, man, like I said, I appreciate you taking the time to do this, especially, because you got a show coming on. I feel, I feel the sincerity in your voice when we talk about this. Again, with the people that are watching, none of these questions were, predetermined. None of this is scripted because, we don't believe in that shit. We wanted to have a real conversation with you without, having to, because I've seen some of the clips that you had online with the different people that had like, they say they want to sit down and understand you, but all they want to do is just yell and point fingers and just, tell you off and not even give you a chance to even hear what you're saying. I want to try to give you kind of a different platform to, get your point across, get your point of view out. Any last words you want to put out there for people to get to know the real you before we head out?
Wow.
No pressure.
Like, I'm not
All
racist.
right.
Right? I love everybody.
Yeah, I do. I don't know. Again, I'm not. I hate feeling the the pressure of it's like sometimes I want to go through the pedigree of look at all these things I've done, and look at these, this black person who played drums for me, and you call me a Nazi, but here I am in Israel with in Tel Aviv with all these beautiful people, and I have black people in my family, and literally, here I am with the coach who's black. I'm praying with him in the streets, and here I am playing with these kids from the projects that we've brought hundreds of dollars in toys and clothes and food to them, and
Right.
I don't want to be that guy where I'm not, where even though I don't have to list all these things that I've done in my life.
Right.
Sometimes I feel the pressure to do that, but not so often, because I know that probably I'm never going to be as big as I should have been, certainly could have been. And a lot of it is because of what I've said and what I've stood for and the things that I've done.
Right.
Now, if you really go into what I've said, what I've stood for, and what I've done, it is beyond reproach. I've lived my life, certainly in the past, say 5, to 7 years, to make sure that I live my life beyond reproach. What does that mean? That means that even in its most uncomfortable and difficult parts, integrity is everything. The things that I say are the things that I mean and the things that I do. And you can look back on my life and say, okay, the things that he said, and they all line up. When I decided to testify for the Proud Boys in January 6th, I was looked up and down by the FBI, one side and, to the other. My life was turned inside out to find something that that they could peg on me, drag me through the media, something that would ruin me and that would take away from the case. And they couldn't find anything. They found nothing. They wanted to indict me. Of course they wanted to put me in jail. They would have loved to have Michael Graves on a head. My head. They would have loved it. It would have been great. But they couldn't find anything because I've lived my life in a way that, certainly I've done things wrong, but never to, some of these things. So, knowing again that maybe I'm never going to be a rich man, but when my children or fans of mine or young men, right, live to die for things that you live to die for, young men that look to me, whether you're a musician or just a young man looking for somebody or something to look up to, you look at my life, it is going to, be one that can be used as an example of integrity, of all of these things that my parents and my grandparents, especially my mom, is very proud of. And that goes to, right, a man's name in my individual integrity. And it's something that when I go to bed at night, even though sometimes it's very difficult to get to sleep because of all the storms in my mind and the things, the one thing that brings me peace is that I've done good and that I'm doing good. And even though it's hard, and that's the message to everyone, it's the last song that I play in the acoustic. The refrain is, if the world catches fire, or when the world catches fire, you got to hang on. It's going to be all right. And I say that to myself. And again, I've lived my life beyond reproach. And so I know what I've done is good. And my children, especially, and my family can look to me and be proud.
Awesome. Well, before we head out, you touch on something that I don't think we touched on about the Proud Boys. What is it that you testified for the Proud Boys?
So I got to in Washington D.C. I went out there for the rally with my manager,
Okay.
and I was involved. It's funny again, racist Michael Graves. I was involved with a group called Latinos for Trump,
Nice. Yep. Definitely got
who were
racist.
also yeah, you know,
Definitely racist as fuck.
yeah, and so Enrique Tarrio, who is a friend of mine, had hooked me up with the the head of Latinos for Trump, and they were doing something on January 6th in the morning. Asked me if I wanted to play on stage, and I said absolutely. And I was then asked to sing the national anthem. So the reason that I found myself testifying for the Proud Boys is because on January 5th, Enrique Tarrio had already been arrested, and I knew the guys in the Proud Boys. I knew Joe Biggs. Obviously, I knew Enrique. So I was looking for those guys on January 5th, knowing that Enrique had been arrested and that there would be some, it was getting a little bit crazy. So I had reached out to a friend of mine who then reached out to somebody else who put me in touch with Ethan Nordian, Rufio.
Okay.
I said, hey, man, what's going on? You guys all right? Where are you at? Found out where they were at. They were at a hotel. Let me go visit them. So I hooked up with Ethan. Me and my manager went to see Rufio, find out what's going on. Joe Biggs was on his way, flying in on an airplane. Why was I going to see them? I was going to see them because I knew the last time the Proud Boys were in Washington, D.C. was in November before. Now, when they got there, the night that they were there was a big rally. There was a protest. Antifa was there. Proud Boys were there. It descended into total chaos, and a bunch of people, including Enrique and a woman, were stabbed. And it was and it was bad. Almost the one individual that was stabbed almost lost his life. One of the reasons that happened is because prior, if everybody remembers, when Trump and Biden were on stage together, the whole debate thing where Biden said, do you reject the Proud Boys? And Trump said, this Proud Boys stand back and stand by. And so what happened in the Proud Boys organization was there was just this huge influx of guys that wanted to be part of the Proud Boys. So that when all the months later, what happened was there was an element to the Proud Boys that was uncontrollable. These guys just wanted to confront people. They were aggressive. It got crazy. And that's what happened in November. And there were confrontations, and there was probably about, I think the estimate was like 1,500 guys on the ground, 1,500 men, boys full of piss and vinegar. Yeah. And that was just on, the one side. And then you had Antifa as well. And then the night descended into chaos. All sorts of people got hurt, almost killed. So now let's jump to January 6th. I sit down with Ethan. One of Enrique's goals that those few days was to keep everybody out of trouble, to not have any violence, to get everyone off the street. We're going to go to the rally. You're going to do the thing. And then they were going to gather everybody back. We were going to march as much as possible to tire everybody out. Enrique was gone. So I sat down with Rufio and I said, well, one of the things that we should do, and actually my manager said, well, why don't you play for everybody? That the evening of January 6th, everybody go to the rally, to the protest. Everybody's done. We come back to the Airbnb, get as many guys as we can off the streets. Everybody parties here. I'm going to play for everyone. It's going to be awesome. You drink your beer, do your thing. So we came up with the plan and so we figured it out. So the morning of January 6th, I sing the national anthem. I play my songs. I help with the production of the event. Trump got on stage, was talking and talking and talking. We had been up very, very early.
Yeah.
And so this is where God intervenes, okay? This is where God intervenes. And I won't keep you any longer than this. I know that I'm long-winded, but that's the thing.
You're good.
My story is long and complex. So Arturo and I, who also signed an affidavit in defense of the guys on January 6th, we were up since like 5 a.m. And the day before we had gotten to DC, we were all over the place, just checking everything out, taking pictures and video. And so we were tired, and it was cold and wet, and there was so many people. So I don't know, about 12:30 or something, before before President Trump had stopped talking, Arturo and I said, hey man, let's get over to where the guys from InfoWars, where Alex Jones was going to be. And that's where everybody was going to meet up. Over towards the Capitol. They had a stage there. It was going to be, I wanted to listen to some of the speakers, talk to some people, take some pictures, see what was going on, and just kind of be part of it. So we left before the president stopped speaking because we wanted to beat the crowd. So we started walking over there, and it was just like really like just 1 block away. It was like right over there. We were right across the street from one of the Senate buildings. So we started walking, and we were cold. We were tired. Arturo's a real big guy, really bad knees, and I could see he was tired as well. And so we get up to the corner where right on the other side of the street is the Capitol, right where everything had happened. And as I'm approaching the corner, I seen a bunch of unmarked cars with their sirens on go flying by. Yeah. I see some like police people moving a certain way, and it just seemed strange to me. Somebody asked me, hey, what do you think, what's going on as the cars pass? And I don't know why I said, I was just like, it's probably Vice President Pence's motorcade or something. I don't know. But something inside me was like, something's not right. I could hear the radios, the police radios going off, and there was weird chatter. Something was just not right. So before I crossed the street, I turned to Arturo. I'm like, you know what, man, fuck this. Like, I've seen Alex speak 100 million times. Like, I know what he's going to say. Owen was, I knew. I was like, let's just go back to the hotel, bro, and dry off and recharge our batteries, and then head back over to the Airbnb and meet those guys when all this is done. So he's like, yeah, all right, right on. Let's do that. Because again, like I said, he was tired too. And in my mind, I was like, yeah, he's tired. I can just rationalize it by saying it's his fault. He's tired. Let's just go. Yeah. So we had to walk a whole, I think even on the way back to the car, we got lost. And by the time we got down into the car, I had in my ears, I was listening to the feed that was coming out of the Senate. And I lost signal when we were down in the parking garage. And admittedly, I think I smoked a bowl when we got down there. So we were down in the parking garage longer than we should have been. But by the time we got to the top, like at the time, we were done doing our thing and drove the car out, my phone started blowing up. Bling, bling, bling. And I was seeing all these like updates from the news. And I seen outside the Capitol of everybody, like, what was happening. And I was like, oh, shit. And Arturo was like, we have to get out of the city right now. They are going to shut everything down. We're going to get trapped here. Let's get out. And I was like, hell yeah. And he's like, oh, hey, man, I swear to God, he goes, and so we're like, yeah, let's get out. This is crazy. Oh, my God. And then there's like a beat. And he goes, hey, man, have you ever seen the Exorcist steps? They're right over there in Georgetown. And I'm like, oh, hell no.
That's the weed.
I'm like, no, I never seen it. Let's go. So on the way, like we stopped and I got to see the Exorcist steps. But so I testified in defense of the Proud Boys because I knew that there was no seditious conspiracy to take over the government that day.
Right.
Rufio. It was Rufio. Rufio didn't even have his cell phone because he forgot to charge it. Like he didn't charge his phone, and so I knew what the Proud Boys plan was that day, and the plan was that there was no plan. They were going to do their marches like they always did. They were going to do their thing, and then they were going to go back to the Airbnb, and everyone was going to get drunk and stupid and do their thing and listen to me play the guitar. And that was the Proud Boy plan for January 6th. Had nothing to do with, the Ministry of Defense, or there was no plan whatsoever at all.
Jeez.
And I testified to it in court and caught hell leading up to when they finally brought it to, to trial.
Well, by that time, all the narratives were already spun, and all the hate and everything was already out there. So it's kind of,
dude,
once your name's attached, it's guilty by association.
And it just goes back to the whole labeling thing. Once you become part of some party, you're labeled already.
Yeah,
exactly. One of the things I did, I started to brainstorm and sketch this idea for like a movie or a sitcom that like, all right, let's draw this out. Okay, the Proud Boys have taken over the seat of the American government. Okay, let's take it a step further. Like, all right, what happens next? Right? Like, what happens next? We can't even get a McDonald's order together. With 15, 20 guys.
Right.
We're gonna run the government. Just stupid.
No, but it makes for a great narrative.
Yeah.
That makes for a great narrative
of course.
side.
Yeah,
you get to run with it.
Yeah.
Damn.
You're trying to take over the government.
We're ending on a good note, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I guess one final question before we roll out.
Yeah.
Is the Illuminati real?
Well, certainly there's an Illuminati. Yes. Yeah, certainly there is hidden information that we're not getting in certain groups that do everything they can to keep that information hidden. Certainly, think about the story about the cave on the wall, right? Where they're back to civilization, where they're just making shadows on the wall, and the people are like, because they don't know the hidden hand, and that's what the Illuminati is the hidden hand.
Damn. Okay, one last question.
Okay, Vince is going to finish this. Yeah, Vince is going to finish this.
Are aliens real?
Of course they're real. Come on. That's not even a difficult question. Okay. Fuck yeah, they're real.
Would they think you're racist?
No, because they can read my mind.
They can read
and
your
they
mind.
know. They know.
All right, Mike. Like I said, I appreciate you. October 18th out here in Mesquite, New Mexico. The Third Eye Carnival headlining 8 p.m. acoustic concert. Very limited seating. Make sure you get to it on the Third Eye. I know you guys they are on the Instagram. The Third Eye Carnival is the Instagram handle. If anybody needs to keep up with you and wants to find out more information about where Michael Graves is either going to be next or performing next to support, where could they find that?
Officialmichaelgraves.com. Officialmichaelgraves.com. You can also go there and not only see my tour stops, but you can also see the documentary called An American Prayer that has a lot to do with the conversation that we had tonight, including how I got into the Misfits. And it's got really, really great footage of South American tour last year and footage and pictures of my entire career. So it's at officialmichaelgraves.com. Just scroll down to An American Prayer, click it, and enjoy.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
No Instagram, Snapchat, OnlyFans, or anything?
I've been thrown off so many of the platforms that I just started an Instagram. It's Real Michael Graves. Again, people go to there and they're like, well, you only got like 150 followers. Is this really you? I'm like, yeah, I got kicked off. There's no Facebook. I'm on X at Radio Deadly.
Okay.
Yeah, that's about it. Best place to go is Official Michael Graves.
There we go.
Sounds good.
Like I said, appreciate you again. Appreciate your time. I know 2 hours. You made Vince's year.
Hey,
I'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, Vince is just FYI. Vince has been off of this pod for 2 years, you know, a little bit more than that. No,
Yeah,
about 2 years.
More than 2 years.
You know, with life and whatnot, you know, all the different stuff that goes on with our schedules and all that shit. And he came
I
out of
understand.
this because he needed to talk to you and wanted to talk to you, get to know, you know, everything behind everything. It's that way you can just show some support. And like I
Thank
said,
you.
October 18th, can't wait to see you on stage. Intimate concert. Make sure you get your Third Eye Carnival tickets. Guys, until next time, don't be an asshole. Don't be a dick.
Don't die.
Don't die. Deuces.
Later.